Welcome back. So let's get right into typesetting. And we're going to start here on the inside flap. I'm going to zoom in. And it's important that as we're viewing this area that we have our margins visible. Right now I don't see my margins. I just see the separate pages separated by this thin line. So to view my margins, I'm going to press W. Okay, perhaps on yours it was already on, but if not, just press W to hide and show your margins. Now I can see here that this is my margin space, and I believe I have this set up as a 1/4 inch margin. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that our text is within that margin space. Now, perhaps if you're formatting your book, from scratch, when you're creating your text box, you would create a text box within that margin space like that. So now that our text is safely within the margin space, you can see here we're just using some placeholder text. Let's imagine that this flap is going to represent about the author. So I'm going to move it down a little bit. And we don't have an author picture yet. More than likely for this project, you'll be using your own picture. So what I can do is go ahead and place a picture of myself here in this area. So I'm going to take my frame tool, create the frame for the picture, Command D, and I'll go right into my computer here and grab this picture. Oh, that works. That's fine. Remember, the keyboard shortcut to immediately make it shrink is Command Option Shift E. You can also use your frame fitting options. Remember, in our properties we have frame fitting right here. Fill frame proportionately. Okay, either way. And I want to scale this up a little bit more, so I'm going to click on a donut, and up here is my scaling. Once I click on the donut, I can increase the size of this picture a little bit more. And that's fine. That's all I'm going to do for this picture. I will make sure that it is centered within this space. InDesign does a great job of showing you when things are lined up perfectly. So you look for that purple or pinkish line and you know you're spot on centered. For my text now, because this is the most important part, so what I'm going to do is go into my paragraph styles. Paragraph styles is a way to create formatted universal formatting that can be repeated throughout your document. So how I have this text formatted on this flap will be the same way how I would want it formatted on the other flap. And the best way to do that and to really get beautiful typesetting is to use paragraph styles. So what I'll do here, I'm going to select all my text. And here is my paragraph styles panel. If you don't see it open, you would go to Window, Styles, Paragraph Styles. And usually when it opens up, it gets bundled with your character styles as well. So now that my text is highlighted, I have my paragraph styles panel here. We're going to create a new style that will be applied to this text. But as we create this new style, I want to also put in the options and the settings for this. I'm going to move this window over so I can see what's about to happen. And to create a new style on a Mac, you're going to hold down Option. On Windows, you'll hold down Alt. Option or Alt, click this plus sign, and now we're in our new styles. The first thing we're going to do is take a nap. I know that sounds crazy, but it's a cute little acronym, NAP. N stands for Name Your Style. So we're going to name this, I'll call this Inside Flap Paragraph. So N stands for name, we've named it. A stands for apply style to selection, which is checked. That means anything that we're doing is going to be applied to this selection. And 3, P stands for preview. So name, apply, preview. Take a nap. Once you have those 3 things done, you can press OK. And now it's no longer necessary to have this text highlighted. So I'm going to press escape. And as long as the box is selected, the style will be applied to the text inside the box. It's very difficult to format text when it's highlighted like that. So that's the reason why we take off the highlighting, but knowing that the box is still selected, you can see that inside flat paragraph will be applied to any text inside this box. Now it's actually going there in format. So I'm going to go back to my paragraph style, right click and choose edit. We're back inside the style options, and now let's go down this list. The great thing is, as many settings as you see here, you don't have to worry about every single setting. I'm going to take you through some of the more commonly used settings when it comes to typesetting a basic paragraph. So first, your basic character format. This is where you would choose your font, your style, and the size, your basic formatting here. So I don't want a serif font. I'm going to choose a sans serif font for this area. And I'm going to actually choose a one of the more commonly used ones, maybe Acumen Variable Concept. So for this, I'm going to go with a semi-condensed medium. And that looks pretty good. Now with regards to the size, we don't use 12-point font size for body text. It's way too large. So we're going to take this down to about perhaps a 10.5. The leading is the amount of space in between the lines of text. Your default leading is always 2 points more than your font size, so that's why it says 12. We can loosen up the leading a little bit, or we can tighten up the leading a little bit. I'm going to tighten it to about 11. Your kerning, you can see which one looks better. Sometimes metric looks just fine. Sometimes optical gives it a better look. Sometimes it's so imperceptible it doesn't really matter. So either one is fine. Tracking refers to the spacing between all of the letters within the text. So right now we have a default tracking of 0. If you wanted the spacing to be a little bit tighter, you could bring it down to like a -10. If you want it to be a little bit looser, you can increase the tracking. You can see extreme loose tracking like that. It's very difficult to read. So be very careful if you're playing with tracking. You probably won't use that too much. And then your normal case and then position, all these things you don't have to worry about those. The most common settings here, you're choosing your font, you're choosing the style, you're choosing the size, and you're setting your leading. Those are the common things in basic character formats. Okay, now let's go to advanced character format. Sometimes if if you're using a font that does not have a condensed version, but you really want to use it, and if it tends to be a little bit wide, you can, only for wide fonts like Arial, Tahoma, Verdana, those kind of fonts, you can adjust the horizontal scale to 95%. Let me change this back to Arial so you can see what that would look like. If you notice, Arial is a relatively, wide font, okay? And I can go into my advanced character format and just adjust the scale down to 95%. It just gives it a tighter look in the paragraph that looks better. Okay, so this is only recommended for regular looking fonts that have a typical wide appearance. I do like the fact that we chose Acumen Pro because it has options for, actually we chose Acumen Variable Concept, which has semi-condensed. and that looks just fine right there. Your next option is indent and spacing. This is really where you have a personal preference. There's usually one of two options that you will be choosing. If you notice here, by default, my text is left aligned with rags on the right. And there's nothing wrong with that, that's fine. But for our inside flap, where the spacing from left to right is very narrow, it's a very narrow space, I would recommend taking a look at the left justify option. Left justify. If you notice on mine, I have a setting in my InDesign that whenever I change text to left justify, where it's clean edges left and clean edges right, I get this this yellow. And what the yellow is showing me are any areas in the text where there are rivers. Rivers refers to that awkward open vertical spacing through the lines of text. There's actually too much spacing between some of these words, and it's causing these vertical rivers. The stronger the yellow, that means the more intense the rivers are. You can see right here, there's a big river gap right there. So usually you want to address these rivers, you want to close them up. When I teach this on site, the goal really there is to get as little yellow on the screen as possible. Try to eliminate as much of that yellow as possible. So this only happens again if you're choosing left justify, because InDesign is going to spread the words out to get you those nice clean lines left and right, and in spreading the words out you end up with this awkward spacing. The cool thing is there's a really great way to get rid of those rivers, and we're going to take a look at that in a second. I'm going to press OK for now, and I want to show you how I got this setting, because I'm pretty sure you're wondering, how do I get the yellow to indicate that there's rivers? This is done by simply going into your InDesign preferences. On a Mac, that's Command K, Windows Control K, or you can go under your preferences and choose General. Once you open up the preferences with Command K or Control K on Windows, you want to come right down here to where it says Composition. And this checkbox here, H and J violations, hyphenation and justification violations, that is a setting that when checked, it will show you the rivers in yellow. So make sure that it's checked, press OK, and whenever you set your text to justify, if there's rivers, InDesign will show it to you in yellow. Now that you know how to get that setting on there, I want to break this up into two separate paragraphs here. Okay. And now let's go back into our settings. I'll show you how to address the rivers and how to do paragraph spacing. Right click Edit. And here we are back into our paragraph styles. So we just did a left justify in our indents and spacing, and that's what caused the rivers. Let's jump all the way down to right here, justification. Justification, that is where you can dial in some numbers. You can put in some numbers here, and it will reduce the amount of rivers. So what numbers do you put in here? Great thing is you can go right online and you can type in InDesign justification settings as a Google search. When you look it up on Google, click on images, and quite frankly, this setting right here has been tried and true. I use this 99% of the time and it does wonders. 75, 85, 110, minus 204, 98, 100, 102. I actually have my students take a screenshot of this and save it on their phone. So please jot down these numbers or take a picture of it. Keep this for reference. Now we're going to go back into InDesign and plug in those numbers. Watch what happens when I use those numbers on this block of text. 75, 85, -2, 0, 4, 98, 0, 100, and 102. Big improvement. Now again, it's not going to eliminate, sometimes it will, sometimes it'll take out all the rivers, but you should see a reduction in the amount of rivers. And if you look here, there's really not a lot of big awkward vertical spacing. So this formula, it works. This is my go-to formula for addressing those yellow rivers. Now let's jump down to something very obvious, which is your character color. Okay, we don't want black text here. So I'm just going to do a really quick switching. I'm just going to choose white. In this case, it's referred to as paper. Okay. And from there, let's press OK. Okay. If the yellow rivers are still kind of obscuring your view, you can press W to hide your guides and you'll see how that looks. So this looks pretty good. We do have two separate paragraphs. Remember, I split this into two paragraphs, but it's hard to see the separation. It looks like it's really still one. So you want to go in here. We're not going to do this manually. I don't want to see anybody doing this, pressing return. No, because that space is way too much. What you want to do is go back into your paragraph setting and set a space after. So with this block of text still selected, I'm going to right click and choose edit. Go back into my paragraph styles, and here where it says indent and spacing, right there, space after. In other words, how much space after each paragraph do you want? I'm just going to increase this just a little bit. You can do a whole lot. Okay, usually just 1 or 2 clicks will do. If you want to do a first line indent, you could do that. That indents that first line of the paragraph. Again, keep your adjustments very subtle. And that's basically it. Those are the most commonly used settings in paragraph style options to typeset a paragraph. And when I click away, zoom out, you can see how nicely that looks.